Before I start talking about what sustainability is, I just want to make a few points. In order for us to reach sustainability, we got to understand that we are all biological beings living on a biological planet, and we're born from this planet. And being so, we require the air, the water, the food that it all produces in order for us to live here happily. So quite simply, in order for us to be sustainable, we need to design our social and economic systems in accordance with the natural life supporting systems that already exist on this planet. You know, we can still have economy, we can still go about things, but we need to have an understanding of where we are, you know, that we live on this planet. Things like poverty, class division, inequality, war, depression. I think the worst of all is the inability for one to pursue their dreams or to help others because it's simply not profitable in today's market. And really that goes to show just how sustainable we've become. Basic things that no matter, not just environmentally, what we do or how we go about, you know, further developing or any changes that we go about, these are the basic things that we need. And we need to address them on a much lower, on a smaller scale. It's typically when we talk about sustainability, we're shown these huge wind turbines out at sea. We see deserts full of solar panels. And these things don't really do much for people who, you know, they've just lost their job. And let me see if I get that again. And, you know, people, well, pretty much like us, you know, down on the ground, we just don't see these things. So we need to address water, the food, resources in order to build our homes, to build facilities for education, to build our communities. You know, with education, then that's going to feed into the rest of them to understand how we can sustain that and how we can build upon that to further our efficiency. So I'm going to go through really practical things because, again, I feel a lot of the technologies that we tend to have this idea that maybe one day there'll be a technology that'll come and save us from the problems. But really, I believe that true sustainability is going to start from, which is what the term grassroots comes from, I believe, is from the ground up, from poor people, working class people, you know, people who are going to be really struggling. These things at least will give them a fighting chance as the economy gets worse. So starting off with things addressing water, every home should have a rainwater encatchment tank. You know, the rainwater, I mean, we get plenty of rain here, and already the rainwater, it has been filtered through the clouds. So it's much cleaner than trying to capture water from the ground that would have been full of contaminants. A regular water tank can supply toilets and showers and other utilities. So that's a huge percentage of our water consumption being caught, you know, free. The main focus, like again, with being practical, is trying to see how we can fit these things into smaller communities, so that we're not dependent on one centralized, you know, water treatment or one centralized energy source that again is only driven by profit. It has no interest in really trying to supply you with energy for your home or trying to supply you with water. You know, sooner or later, once somebody capitalizes on it, all that matters is how to make a profit of it. And that's our basic human rights. You know, like we need water to live. You know, how somebody can make a profit from that is fish there really shows the how plant waste goes to feed the fish, and then the fish excrement turns into fertilizer for the plants. And basically we're designing things now, well, we should be designing things now with a closed loop design. You know, we have a linear type of way of thinking where you extract something, you create it, and then it goes to waste. You know, whereas this, we close that loop. So there is no waste product. The waste only fuels the beginning of the process. And again, these centers can be done on a huge scale, could be done on a small scale. Any kind of abandoned land that's scattered around Dublin or in all these communities, they can be put in to feed the community. And the community can take part in this and learn from it. And then this is a radio garden, and this is more for indoor use. It doesn't take up all that much space. But within that, you have 64 plants in total that if you were to do that conventionally, would probably take up almost the size of this room, you know? So, and again, it has one light source, whereas if you were to do this flat, you need to require quite a lot of light. So it's a really, really efficient design. And it's incredibly simple too. Like, it's something so simple that we can actually produce this here, you know? Simple plastics, steel frame, steel water reservoir underneath, light, very, very simple. You know, like if we hear all this about creating jobs and all this kind of stuff, well, we can start manufacturing these and feeding ourselves at the same time, you know, making it easier. And then that can be put into a much larger scale, where it's like an indoor radial farm. And again, very efficient, very secure way of like this would be the monocrop of the future. This is the only way monocrop farming can go on into the future. You know, monocrop farming only destroys land. You need heavy pesticides, and every year you need even more toxic pesticides to produce. And on top of that, you need heavy machinery. You know, these tractors and then the processing and all that. Whereas this can be built anywhere. It can be built next to a community. You can build here in the city center and produce for the people in the area. And these are just conceptual drawings of, you know, some ideas of how you can use these really simple technologies, but put and apply them to major cities. You know, like throughout this, you can be producing all your fish, veg, fruits, you know, everything. And at the bottom, you have your water filtration system, this living system that I showed you. You know, so in that one building, you could feed an entire area. You know, all trees, all plants have relationships with each other. And instead of building these huge monocrop of just pine, where the ground is so acidic, nothing grows, we can create really diverse forests. You know, that again, it can be used as parks, for education, for recreation. So it's basically, while at the same time supplying ourselves with our own. It's basically just setting yourself up for security, because unfortunately, like the basic things that we need to live have been corrupted, and they've been captured almost for the sake of profit, which is completely wrong. We're caught in this trap right now. You know, so doing these things allows you to have that security. Whichever way the economy goes, at least you know you have your water, you have the means to grow your own food. As far as heating, a lot of us have one of these chimneys. You know, chimneys, yeah, it's handy that you have one already there, but it's, you know, they're incredibly inefficient. The majority of the heat goes straight out the chimney. You know, they're only captured with this little area of heat right in front of it. Whereas you have something called a rocket stove, which I'll demonstrate here, which actually concentrates the heat within the actual device itself. So you have basically a barrel here, a cylinder, and this is all clay formed around it, and you have a smaller barrel in the inside. Basically, you have a little hatch here where you put sticks, because you don't need logs. That's how efficient it is. You just put in a few twigs and sticks. The fire occurs here. The heat rises, but it doesn't escape. It has to go around the barrel and down into the exhaust, you know, which can be run underneath your floor, or whichever way you want. You know, again, using vertical space. Now, these are prefabricated. These are actually, you know, in the market. You know, very simple design. You know, and depending on which way your house is designed, that can also act like an insulation. You know, here's one for an apartment. The barrel or the bottles there. Again, using a waste product, and here we go. Somebody living in a really tight apartment that has no space, if they have a window, then they have a potential garden. You know, it's basically you're planting you're putting your plants on clay pellets. You know, it doesn't need to be so serious as well. You know, we can have fun doing this, and that's the whole idea. You know, not everything needs to be so serious. So, but again, using waste products, things that we just find scattered all over Dublin, you know, that we can make use of. And there's plenty of tires just thrown about the place that could be planters. These buckets, for instance, we buy flower pots in, you know, places like Woody's and all this kind of stuff. It costs us €20. you know, like 20 euro for a family that maybe, you know, they've lost their job or so, like that's their food money, you know. They don't want to be buying flower pots, but that's, you know, these buckets are just found everywhere. And that particular design doubles the actual production of the bucket because you're using the bottom. Tables can be pretty expensive, and usually they're, you know, you buy them in, you know, trying to save money. You might get them in Argos or something like that, and you're supporting something that's probably was made in China, but by really unethical, you know, practices. You know, we really need to focus on communities, you know, educating each other. When I think of an area of working class people, like for me, I see an area full of people that have so many different types of experiences and skills, you know, and we need to start, you know, getting relationships and educating each other. And that's it, you know, it all comes down to community. We're social creatures, you know, we need each other, you know, so we really need to use these things in order to help ourselves get through which way the economy goes in the future. So that's it. Thank you.